Welcome. I'm happiness coach Teresa Greco, and this is the Steps to Happiness show. Here, my guests and I talk about the steps you can take towards a happier, more fulfilled, authentic life. Hello, and welcome to the Steps to Happiness show on 105.9 The Region. I'm your host, Teresa Greco, happiness coach, author, editor, writer, educator, and Reiki master. Are you ready to take the necessary steps towards true, unwavering inner happiness? If so, the Steps to Happiness show is for you. On my show, you will learn about the principles and practices that lead to true inner happiness, because guess what? It isn't found in our external environment, but is found within ourselves instead. Together with my guests, each week we will explore the latest in physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being practices. And together we'll advise you on the actionable steps you can take towards a happier, more fulfilled, authentic life. The happiness principle for today's show is shedding limiting beliefs so that we can live happier, more authentic lives. So, what are limiting beliefs? Limiting beliefs are unconscious thoughts and beliefs that we have, but are not even aware of, but they limit us from being our true selves and limit our full potential. The majority of our belief systems were handed down by well-meaning people like our families, our teachers, religious leaders, but they were handing down negative beliefs that are like mind viruses that zap our joy and stop us from moving forward and growing both on a personal and professional level. And today's show is going to talk about some tools that you can use to remove those mind viruses. The first step in removing them is simply being aware that they exist. It is kind of like turning the light on in a dark room. The darkness just goes away. Once we shed light on the limiting beliefs, then we can begin to replace them with beliefs that bring us joy instead of blocking it. So, step one is becoming aware that they exist in the first place. There's a quote by Marianne Williamson that says, "We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? Your playing it small does not serve the world." So, what makes us play it small? Well, it's our unconscious belief systems, an inner voice that tells us we're not worthy, that tells us we're not to brag about what's going well in our lives, otherwise people won't like us. Or the belief that we can't measure up to other people because we don't have what it takes to be as good as them. These beliefs come from words that were said to us growing up and got programmed into our minds about who we are and what we are capable of. Words like, "You're not smart enough. You're not athletic enough. You're not attractive enough. You don't have what it takes to achieve that." It's people's negative opinions and beliefs about how the world works that were programmed into our computer, our mind, which limited the ways we see ourselves and who we could be and what we could accomplish. So, it's about taking the time to think about, to become cognitively aware of these thoughts and ask yourself, where did these beliefs about myself come from? Who said these things to me? And are they actually true? Because if you don't look at them, they will continue to zap your chances of joy because they limit you. There is nothing good about shrinking ourselves so that other people won't feel insecure around us. We are all meant to shine and to share what's unique and special within us. It's not just in some of us, but we all have it. And when we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we free ourselves from our own fear to be who we really are, our presence automatically liberates others to feel that they can do the same. On the show today, we have two incredible guests. My first guest is Michael Holmes Jr., the son of Mike Holmes, the professional contractor, and a member of the crew on the hit TV show Holmes and Holmes, Holmes Inspection, Holmes Makes It Right, and Holmes and Holmes. Michael will be speaking about how he is living his authentic self after living in his father's shadow and is advocating for others to do the same. My second guest is Chris Campbell, a performance coach. Chris will share some of the strategies and brain training techniques he uses with his clients to shed their limiting beliefs and the results they can achieve. Hello, Michael, and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Teresa. I'm happy to be here.
I had the pleasure of interviewing Michael about their show, Holmes Family Effect, where Michael revealed some things to me which intrigued me as a happiness coach, and I wanted to learn more about them. Michael told me that he had begun working with his father behind the scenes of his shows every summer as young as 14, and has ever since become a regular crew member on several shows with his father, Mike, and his sister, Sherry. Michael, I wanted to ask you, what challenges has working with your family posed for you, and how have you been able to still make it successful?
Oh man, working with your family is a tough one. That's something, there's times I look back and I think, if I could do it again, I wouldn't. But at the same time, we've grown a lot. I think one of the biggest things that I struggled with at first was, separating myself from my father. In the beginning, I wanted to be like him and was trying to kind of mirror him. And then I quickly realized that, I'm not him. I have to respect who I am and just empower that and embody that. So that became my mission, was to just, figure out, A, who am I? Who is Mike Holmes Jr.? And then B, how can we make that work with, my dad as we work in this business together. So there's a lot of boundaries that were set along the way, a lot of lines crossed, but I mean, that is kind of how you find those boundaries, is to really cross them at first. So I'd say the biggest thing that has helped us over the years is those boundaries, because we've learned from each other. I've learned how to work better with him, and he learned how to work better with me because of those boundaries.
And I think sometimes our family members are our biggest friends in that respect, or teachers in that they can prompt us to feel like we need to put those barriers up. And that's a lesson that we need to learn, that to honor and respect ourselves, that sometimes we do have to put barriers up between us and things that, or people that are not serving us. So that's great that you were able to establish those boundaries and still maintain positive relationships with them. So that's great.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't, always positive, but in the end, now it's positive. So that's, working towards that positive relationship, which I'd say it's stronger now than ever.
And so you've mentioned that although you share some core values with your dad, and with respect to the fact that you have this show together and you are doing like amazing work and helping communities and families and in a whole bunch of different ways. But at the same time, as you were doing that with him, how did you still maintain your own individuality and and really just stepping into your power, that, you needed to differentiate yourself from your dad? And so how were you able to do that? And when did you maybe realize that that's what you needed to do for yourself?
That is that's a tough one, because it wasn't until my later 20s that I started to realize that, I need to come into my power. And my wife was the one who helped me with that. She, I feel bad because she was my therapist for a while until I saw an actual therapist, and she really helped me, get away from that imposter syndrome that I was feeling, and working under my dad, who was, he paved the road on HGTV for so many people. So I did, in a way, feel like an imposter, and gaining that confidence to to say, you know what, I'm here for a reason. I can hold my own, and the most important part of that was just finding out what is important to me, and who I am as a person, and just really focusing on being that through and through, just being my most authentic self. And I'd say through therapy, through the love of my wife and support of my wife, that I was able to do that.
And now that you've discovered, who that authentic self is for you, I think that you are also working towards being an advocate to changing some of the stereotypes that exist amongst men or people in the trades. And so how would you say that you are being an advocate? What are some of the what's some of the messaging that you're giving out for people that are in the trades?
Well, it's funny because I'm a very sensitive man. I'm a very emotional man, and on the job site, there's a lot of what we'll call as manly men. There's these people who are loud, they're maybe aggressive, but it's not always the case. So I think just again, being your authentic self, showing the manly men that it's okay. It's okay to show emotion. It's okay to I talk about all the time. So, you should see this movie. Oh, I cried like a baby, or like, talking about showing emotion, feeling emotion, and all the way to even just how I eat on the job site. I'll never forget. I eat predominantly plant-based, and on the job site, showing up with like a salad, avocado, and everyone's eating chicken or beef, and they're like, what are you doing? Why are you eating this way? And I'm like, well, I don't need I don't need meat to be who I am. Like, it's just, this is what I prefer. And I think the more I've found that I really lean into who I am as a person, the more people respect that. But then I also see other people trying to lean into themselves more and being like, oh, okay, it is okay to, he can do that. He can be emotional. He can feel empowered by the way he eats, the way he acts. And that doesn't weaken him. It's a strength, if anything. So I see other people stepping into their power as a result as well.
I love that, because one of the principles I talked today was that when we allow ourselves to be our true selves and let our own light shine, that we actually encourage and allow other people to do the same, that we're saying to them, it's okay that you can
Yeah.
let down those walls. You can be, who you really are without having to worry about, what other people are going to say or think about you. So I love that you've embraced that, because you are actually saying it's okay for you to do the same by you doing what you need to do for yourself. So that is amazing. Now, Michael, I would love to continue to chat with you, because I also wanted to hear about, some of your self-care practices, that you're an advocate for mental health. But I'm unfortunately, this first half is wrapping up. So I just really wanted to thank you so much for sharing with us some of your time, as well as some of the ways that you are living your true authentic self and living your life, to its fullest potential, and all the work that you've done, on the inside to really bring your best self to the world. And thank you so much for sharing that with us today.
Thank you, Teresa. It's always a pleasure, and we'll have to have a part 2 soon.
Yes, I would love that so much. Thank you.
Okay, have a great day.
So stay tuned after the break for my second guest, Chris Campbell, a performance coach. Chris will share with us some of the strategies and brain training techniques he uses with his clients to shed their limiting beliefs so that they can achieve amazing results in both their professional and home relationships.
Want to join the show? Go to teresagreco.ca. The Steps to Happiness show will be right back.
All right, we're back, and we're back with Chris. Welcome to the Steps to Happiness show.
Hi, Teresa. I'm delighted to be here. How are you?
Excellent. Thank you. I'm so happy that you're with us. And so I've already prompted the listeners by letting them know that you are going to offer some of those strategies that you as a performance coach go through with some of your clients to really help them shed limiting beliefs that are holding them back from living their full potential. So maybe if you could just start off by telling us a little bit about what you do exactly.
Yeah, sure, I'll do that. So, Chris Campbell, I'm a performance coach, and performance coaching really grew out of Roman times, like the Olympics. Coaches showed up to work with athletes to get a better performance, a faster run, a faster swim, and we see that has continued many years later. Lots of top athletes have coaches because coaches see the unseen between our ears and can make them get a better performance. For instance, a hockey coach is looking at things differently on the ice than a player would, and is telling them how to adjust their play a little bit to get that little bit extra, to be positioned better, to do things better. It really is a mental game we're playing, and performance coaching is about the mental gym. It's about success psychology, really. And I have now, in my training as a performance coach, worked with a lot of different high achievers. High achievers could be in business, sports, almost any field. And most of these people have already achieved a great deal in their life, but they feel somewhat blocked. They feel a little inhibited mentally. They just can't get around this roadblock. And when they realize that this is the case, they generally are searching around for some help. And what I do is I help them give the confidence that they can do so much more by, for instance, stripping back and looking at limiting beliefs that have been set up maybe in childhood that are ingrained in our subconscious. 95 to 97% of what we do is subconscious. The brain runs the show. There's a pattern there. If we don't disturb that, if we don't rewire the brain for a different outcome, we will continue to do the same thing over and over again. So what I'm doing is I'm holding some space for them. Many people have a narrow view of what they can accomplish based on, the past. What I'm trying to do is give them a very clear, or help them have a very clear picture of the future. And when we practice examining or focusing on that clear vision of the future, the brain really responds positively to that. It expects a greater level of success. So by examining some of these limiting factors, by looking at some unhelpful strategies and employing some more positive strategies, for instance, how we process emotion, how we become aware of what I call red flag emotions, and how we can process those instead of reacting, negatively and expending a lot of negative energy, turning that around for a positive outcome. These are all things that help people draw on lots of different resources to get a better outcome in the moment and for the future.
So maybe if you could let us know, what are some of the limiting beliefs that you find are plaguing a lot of your clients, that if you were to generalize and say, I'm really finding that it's these specific beliefs that people have ingrained in them from, like you said, childhood over the living of our life, that they're mind viruses, which is what I called them, that they've implanted themselves within us. What are the viruses? If you could, maybe, like I said, generalize for the clients that you've been working with, what are some of the more popular beliefs that people have that hold us back?
Well, the first one is, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. And that's something that just shows up all the time for people that are very successful. And this is a pattern that I see time and time again. And those belief systems can be ingrained in a family situation, by, colleagues, friends, whatever, from an early stage. And as we move now into this era of social media, we see a lot of external motivational factors that come into play, which ingrain a lot of that negative thinking. So it even makes it more difficult in a way to unwind those unhelpful belief systems. But what I'm doing here, Teresa, is sitting down and really asking a lot of probing questions about the individual, about their past, and what's showing up for them now. And when we actually get to the crux of, for instance, a negative belief system, we have to look for the proof. I always say we have to look for the evidence. We have to look for the proof that you can't do this. If you have a goal that you want to go further, right? It could be in the corporate world, or as an athlete, or as a coach, or what have you. you have to look for the proof, the evidence that you cannot do that. I always say to people, go back and look at your life history. Focus on what you have done, not what you have not done, and be proud of yourself. And this gives you the ability to take a step forward. And I gently help and push people forward, saying, look, you've done this already. Where's the proof that you can't do this? Because you know what? There's a lot of people just standing still. If you take the step forward, guess what? The chances are you're going to make it. The brain is trying to keep it safe. It's telling us all the time, we can't do this. It's creating all these crazy scenarios, you know, ingrained in our memory, maybe because of a negative experience or from, as I said, like external factors, social media, what have you. It's just not true. So we need to actually just focus on, understand what makes us feel good, what makes us be the person we are. And I keep encouraging people, be your true authentic self, because when you're your true authentic self, you show up in a very energetic way. You're very, very positive, and people respond to that in the workplace and in the family situation. I mean, research shows that when we really spend time working on ourself, this whole idea of our self concept, and we practice it daily, people respond to that in group situations. It might be at work, how well we're engaged, you know, the response that we get back from friends and family. And probably one of the biggest compliments I've had recently, Teresa, is a client, you know, a president of a company. And he told me last summer he was coming over to see me, and his wife yelled at him as he was just, you know, going to his car. And she yelled at him. She said, you know, John, are you going to see Chris? And he replied back and said, well, yes, I am. And she said, well, keep going to him, because whatever he's doing is great. So it informed me the work that we were doing about processing emotion, about focusing on positive beliefs, about looking at and having a clear vision of the future was really showing up. So this person who was somewhat anxious at time was taking on probably too much responsibility, was feeling guilty about every little thing that was happening at work. He was able to take a step back and take a deep breath and process all this and understand that, you know, he cannot be connected to every outcome that is occurring. He can just show up in his most true authentic self.
So if you were going to offer the listeners some, you know, quick strategies on what they can start implementing like now, today.
Yeah.
So, you know, I started off just by saying that step number one is just the awareness of the beliefs, that as soon as we become cognitive of these things that we think about and we believe them to be truths about ourselves, but then when we start to question about, you know, are they really, where did I learn this about myself, who said this, that is really the beginning point. But once you now know that you have these mind viruses, what are some practical strategies, like I said, that people can immediately start to implement to make a change?
Yeah, well, very good. I think the first thing is to just stop. You know, when we're emotionally aware, we learn how to be emotionally aware. I mean, we have to be emotionally aware first in order to be emotionally intelligent, right? And how we react to people. So the first thing I would say is just take a deep breath and stop and try and make meaning of an emotion that, you know, comes through you. You may not know where it comes from, but try and unpack it. Try and define it. You know, what is the emotion? You know, how am I connected to that in any way? Did I trigger that emotion? You know, is that why it's come to me, because of something I said or I did? So really unpacking it, right? And taking a look at that and, you know, saying, well, if it's not really about me, if it's not something negative that I've done, which has triggered that emotion, you know, take that and turn it around for a positive affirmation and say, well, in fact, you know, I'm doing good things. I'm thinking clearly. I'm being very free and open with others around me. You know, I have got a great relationship with other people. I am doing good work. Turn it around as a positive affirmation and say, you know, I'm moving forward in faith. I'm working the best I can, being my true authentic self. That's one thing. I think another thing, again, going back to this whole idea of having a clear vision of the future, really, I think raises our consciousness. Right? When we have a clear vision of the future, as I said, the brain really responds to that, right? And makes us feel good. You know, when we know that we want to do X and Y and we unpack what I call little goals or process goals, the brain responds to that. Sometimes as high achievers, we don't actually take the time to celebrate little wins. That's very, very important, because high achievers are always, they want to get to the mountaintop, and they're working so hard, they burn out. We need to take a step back, and we need to unpack what I call process goals, because that informs us and the brain that, hey, we're doing a good job here. We need to give ourselves a bit of a pat in the back. I think that's really important also.
Well, Chris, that was all amazing. Thank you so much for sharing some of those strategies, like I said, that people can start to implement. Now, you also wanted to offer one lucky listener a discovery session with you, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be, more than happy to, talk to, a listener or two. Let's make it two people. A half-hour free consultation where, I can just talk to them a little bit about, what they're doing right now, where they may feel a little blocked, and come up with a few suggestions to move them forward. There's a lot we can do in 30 minutes. There's a lot of things that I can teach that someone can, take away and start to implement now to get some transformation. And that's really what I do as a performance coach. I'm looking at the change and the transformation in someone.
Awesome. So if there is somebody that's listening and would love to connect with Chris, please follow me on my Instagram, which is Teresa Greco _ steps to happiness. You will see a post there that is offering Chris's discovery session. And then at that point, there'll be some instructions under the post at how you can maybe be one of those lucky people. Now, Chris, if somebody would love to reach out to you to work with you, how can they do that?
Yeah, simply they can just email me at info@elitebraincoach.com. That's info@elitebraincoach.com, or they can go to my Instagram, which is the handle Elite Brain Coach, and they can also contact me through there.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank you so much for being a guest on the Steps to Happiness show today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
And so I would just want to as a recap for the guests that we had on the show today, some of the main points that we heard about is, number one, really listening to our, what feels good within ourselves, that it acts as a guidance for us to feel that we can be our authentic selves by letting go of some of those limiting beliefs that are holding us back. That when we give ourselves permission to be who we really are, that it also allows other people that they can do the same. And that, as Chris mentioned, by being our best selves, it also influences our home and work relationships, that we are able to perform better at work, and our relationships, within our home function and operate a lot better, and people around us like us more when we're happier and being more authentic. So if you would like to connect with me after the show, please feel free to do that at teresagreco.ca. You can also follow me on Instagram at Teresa Greco _ steps to happiness, as well as on my Facebook page, Steps to True Happiness with Teresa Greco. And by email, stepstotruehappiness@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening today. And that was another episode of the Steps to Happiness show. Wishing you a happier week ahead.
Interested in happiness and spiritual coaching and workshops? Go to teresagreco.ca. Email stepstotruehappiness@gmail.com. Follow on Instagram, Teresa Greco _ steps to happiness, or on Facebook at Steps to True Happiness with Teresa Greco. This is the Steps to Happiness show on 105.9 The Region.